Hello everybody and welcome to the 17th episode of the Tharries podcast. Christ, I'm getting old. In today's episode, we have one of my personal favourite YouTubers. I say that about everyone coming on, but this time it is genuine, I promise. We've got Lord Slarr.
It makes me happy that you shat on all the people that came before just to praise me. I mean, that's just the highest praise.
Well, I mean, I gotta try and make everyone feel special. You run out of compliments after a while. It's like, but genuinely, I believe, and I may be misremembering this, I was your 200th subscriber. I think we've spoken about this before.
I'm sure you are. I mean, it's not the biggest claim to fame. It's not like 100 or 1,000.
No. But it's a somewhat significant number.
Yeah, it is.
So,
but it's just like, why would you lie about being the 200? So
yeah,
I believe.
If I was gonna lie, like I was your first subscriber, being there from day one.
No, that was me mum.
that's honestly probably same, actually.
No, it wasn't for me.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's fair enough. I don't know where we see. This is what I mean. Podcasts get very tangenty. We start talking about mums. So starting off, I wanted to know a bit about your history on YouTube, because I don't think I know a lot about where you came from in terms of YouTube, at least. So yeah,
interesting story there. So I'd always kind of so I had a gaming channel, which I'm not going to name because it was when I was quite a young teenager.
Yeah.
But I'd always wanted to get back into always wanted to start making Doctor Who content, because I kind of fell out of love with the show for a while, and I was kind of getting back into it, and I thought, I kind of like this whole YouTube thing. I want to try doing some Doctor Who stuff. So I made a channel in 2014, and for a whole year did bugger all with this. Am I allowed to swear? I mean, that's not swear word, but I, nearly swore. I don't know what your policy is on swearing.
No, swearing, go ahead.
All right.
Screw the algorithm.
And then about a year later, it just so happened that I was going to the Forbidden Planet, get some tiny DVDs. Actually, no, I think I was getting a big finish that day. This was like in 2015, so this is just before the channel started. And I looked over and I was like, nah, that can't be. That's not the Whoadicks and the Host Productions. That's ridiculous. They don't live in Newcastle. Why would they be here? And I kept on looking over and thinking, I'm sure that's the Host Productions and the Whoadicks. And eventually I work at the country, go like, right, I'm sorting this out. I'm going over and say, are you the Whoadicks and the Host Productions? And they were. And it was great. And because they weren't really used to like bumping into people who'd watched their channel at the time, like they got the camera out and recorded me and like said, oh, do you have a channel you want to shout? I said, oh yeah, Lord Slarr. And then I thought, well, now that there's a video of me on the internet saying my channel name, I may as well bloody do something with it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, the rest is history. And the early videos are slightly more in the style of some of my older gaming videos, where I would actually put this little camcorder on, like, the gorilla tripods, and like hook it around the bed and just pray to God it didn't fall off like it did all the time. And then record myself sitting on a chair at a really weird angle. And that's basically how it all started.
Wow, that's actually a really interesting story. I wish mine was that interesting. Because, I think you're right in the sense that when you met the Whoadicks, it's not something you expect people to like. You don't expect to bump into like YouTubers. I hate the term, but there's not really a better term for it, and especially because it's such a niche demographic as well. So that must be somewhat surreal seeing them just in.
It was. That's why I didn't believe it. That's why I didn't believe it for ages. I mean, I remember Ben, who's the Host Productions. Like, we were kind of talking after that incident. He's like, I thought, is that guy looking at us weirdly? Like, he was getting threatening vibes from me, but I was just like trying to like convince myself of what was going on. Because it was just like kind of, it just felt a bit ridiculous at the time. Because this is when, Doctor Who YouTube was a bit more obscure back then.
Yeah.
I feel that it has, even though the show's kind of significance in pop culture has shrank, I feel the YouTube scene has still grown.
Oh yeah, like I think in particular with the current era, actually, I am part of the wave of creators that you would call the Chibnall tubers, the ones that came on specifically in this era sort of time. because you have like the Moffat, like the ones who came on for Moffat. So you had, like, I think Stu Bagful came on around that time, and you had I think Five Who fans came on. All those sorts of ones came around Moffat, and then obviously we're the next sort of evolution of that.
It was very, very different back then because I remember when I started making videos, it was only just starting to become socially acceptable to criticize Stephen Moffat.
Yeah, and then it became like a trend.
But because people go on about how, like, oh yeah, everybody whines on about Moffat, blah blah blah, and they all forget that it was only like 5 years ago when that was extremely taboo.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I started watching Doctor Who content actively in about 2013, which is around the time I got a Google account as well. So YouTube comes with that. And obviously, from what I can remember, the space was very small. I can only ever really remember watching the Who addicts and Five Who fans, and that's about the extent of it. You
Five,
know,
I was gutted when they explode.
I know it was like the equivalent of the Beatles splitting up in our little circle. I was, yeah, because the group channels aren't really a thing you see anymore. Like, they used to be a dime a dozen in the Doctor Who scene, at least. I can remember there being a lot of, like, sort of group channels, sort of Five Who fan wannabe type channels. And that's not going against any of them, it's just that's what they were. They saw Five Who fans doing it and they were like, oh, we'll do that. Whereas now there's just not that many of them, which is a shame, really.
You don't see many group channels in general because they used to be everything. Like you think of, people like Smosh or Screw Attack or
Yeah.
places like that.
The only one I can think of off the top of my head now is like the Sidemen and the E-Boys. Like, those are the only two I can think of in the general YouTube sort of scene. Doctor Who wise, obviously I'm friends with Time of the Whovians United, which are a group channel, and they're really the only ones that I know of in Doctor Who, at least. And maybe
It's difficult to run a group channel because I tried doing a podcast with my friend Matt, Time Lord Magic, and it's there's about 10 episodes of it. I think there's probably less than that, and a lot of it was really good and really funny, and I did enjoy making it. But the problem was, it was always like I'd sit down ready to record with like the guests we'd invited on all on time, and then we found out that Matt went out and got pissed, or was busy that day and couldn't do it, and it was just like when you have like people who have to be involved in something and you can't like cut them out and replace them with somebody. I don't know, unless you've got a really specific and reliable rapport, it does end up just disintegrating
well,
a bit.
that's kind of why. Well, it was. I don't think I did it intentionally at the time. Mainly, I think I did it more because no one would probably be willing to do it with me. Because when I started the podcast, I had like 100 subscribers, if that. I think I did it for that reason mainly, but also I think looking back on it, having it just be me and one other guest has actually worked in its favour. Because I only have to worry about me and you, the other guest. So it's a lot easier in that regard. Like I co-host on Harbo Womes' podcast that's Patreon exclusive, so you won't have seen it, but it's and I do that with him and a mate of mine called Cynical Who, and that's fine because we're close friends. I think that works quite well. I think if you get any more than that, if it was us two and another guest, then it would start to get a bit, out of control. I do think there is a limit to those sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I did the podcast because it was fun to do, but it's also I've been periodically doing live streams over the past couple of years, and they're basically what's replaced the podcast. It's much easier when I can just invite people on, and then I'm the only person who has to be there.
The only thing I don't like about live streams is the unpredictability aspect of what goes on in the sort of behind the scenes bit. Like with this, if something goes wrong, I can edit it out, and there's that safety net there. If I say this wrong, I don't normally, but if say something goes really wrong or like sound cuts out or something, I can just snip it or whatever or change it. Whereas there's not that much freedom with like a live stream.
Oh, you'll have to come on one of my live streams, if nothing else, but to see the meltdown that I have before every single one starts. And trust me, you can ask somebody like Jerry, who's on nearly all of them. Yeah. It's almost every live stream. Something goes wrong, something with OBS, and it's just absolute just biting and screaming at people, and then eventually it's like, oh, it'll work just in time, start. And it's like, oh.
Exactly. Yeah, that's that's what happens with me with live streams. Something always goes wrong. Even if you tell somebody because obviously I'm still in my family home as well currently, so it's like even if you're telling somebody you're doing that, sometimes they forget, and especially when you've got a webcam on as well, it's like, oh, it's a recipe for disaster. Um, but no, I do enjoy live streams. I just like the degree of control that something like this provides.
Yeah, you're probably right, but I just like to see the cancer the chat throws at me.
That's
It
fair
adds
enough.
an extra dynamic.
Although I do premieres for these, so I kind of have that experience at least once. When
Well, no,
I
but it's when you're doing it live, you can actually reply to them, and
Yeah, that's
there's
true.
at least once per live stream somebody says something that's just hilarious. So
Yeah,
I don't know, it's worth it for that.
yeah,
Okay.
and some clips from my live streams have been clipped out and made into memes, so there's that as well. But no, so I think that's a really interesting story, like one that I wasn't expecting. Honestly, I was expecting you to say that you watched, a classic episode and then you decided to do a video on it or something like that. Something a bit more, I guess, mundane, for lack of a better term. Not that I thought they would be, but it's just that's the sort of stereotypical thing I had in my mind. So I guess moving on from that, obviously, and talking about classic Doctor Who and Doctor Who in general, what would you say was the episode that got you into the show? What was your first exposure to Doctor Who?
I mean, the first episode I watched was Rose when it first broadcast because my mum had been a viewer of the show since 1975. So when she
Mm-hmm.
saw it was going back, she thought, well, 6-year-old son will like that. Let's whack it on. But I'd say the episode that actually really got me into it, because I did like Rose, I did like the other episodes after that. But the episode that really got me into it was Dalek. I can
Yeah.
specifically remember my mood while watching that. That was the episode that was like, right, I love this. This is my life now. Spider-Man, he can go fuck himself. Don't need him anymore. I got this shit.
I love that. No, Dalek. I mean, Dalek is a great sort of. I can totally see why that would get you into it. It's arguably there's not been a better Dalek story that since, some would argue, in the modern show. At least. So I can certainly see why that would be your introductory. So I guess as well, a lot of people know you for your Classic Who stuff, I would say. So what was your first exposure to Classic Who specifically?
It's difficult to quite remember
Mm.
because I didn't start late on Classic Who like a lot of people seem to. Like I think it was just after Series 2 aired, I started watching it, and then basically the rest was history from there. And so I've narrowed it down to 2 episodes. So it was either The Five Doctors, which I borrowed off my mum's friend who owned a few Doctor Who's, or it was Spearhead from Space because that and Ark in Space aired on BBC Four in that summer.
Okay,
And that
interesting.
I remember the Ark in Space specifically, so that definitely wasn't the first, but Ark in Space terrified me. Like everybody goes on about, ooh, it's all bubble wrap and stuff, but when you're a 7-year-old, even a 7-year-old from the 2000s, that doesn't matter. It's still
Yeah,
scary
and
stuff.
and even then though, like that specific era, the early Tom Baker era, made such great use of what it had to make it genuinely terrifying. Like it utilized what it had so well. I think, in terms of like its horror aspect, it made even the most silly looking things scary.
I
Um,
remember the bit that got me was when Sarah Jane's having to crawl through that vent, and then there's like all of the Wirren just right
yeah,
underneath her. So,
yeah.
oh my.
No, I think that season in general, season 12, is probably one of my favorite Classic Who seasons. I'm not as well versed in Classic Who as you are, good judging by your videos at least, but I would definitely say that that's one of my favourites, for me at least. But I don't know whether that's a common answer or not.
I mean, I think a lot of people do think that, but I'm not sure I quite agree myself because it has extremely high highs with Genesis and Ark in Space, which are brilliant. But the rest of the season I could really take or leave. Whereas there is other Classic Who seasons, whereas there's all of the episodes I want, or at least 80% of them.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, like, as someone who, like, one of my earlier episodes, it wasn't my first by any means, but it was one of the earlier ones I watched, was Robot. I do have quite a soft spot for that one, despite it being a relatively generic unit run around, just with the fourth Doctor this time instead of the third one, I do have a soft spot for that one, for sure.
No, I feel perhaps what holds back season 12 a bit is that it feels very much like a Pertwee season, but just it's with Tom Baker and Hinchcliffe in charge, because I'm assuming that most of the stories would have been commissioned by Barry Letts.
They were, and obviously Hinchcliffe made alterations to them, obviously to fit his own tone and style more. I think the casting mostly was taken up by the old production team as well, if I'm remembering correctly. So I do get what you mean in the sense that it does very much feel like a transitional season.
And it does work in some cases, because obviously you've got like The Ark in Space, but that's written by Robert Holmes, and obviously he was key in that era as the script editor. And then you have Genesis of the Daleks, which I'm assuming that Terry Nation probably didn't submit a massively thick script for that, because he's very famous for giving really tiny scripts that the script editor has to do a lot of work on. So you imagine that had to have a lot of editing done to it, which probably worked in its favour, because it could have more of a Hinchcliffe imprint and Robert Holmes imprint on it than perhaps the other stories that were more complete.
I don't think that story would be what it was without Hinchcliffe's involvement at all. Like, I just can't quite imagine Terry Nation coming up with something that unique on his own. I'm not saying he's a bad writer necessarily, but he did have...
No, I agree with that. He's got a lot of really unique and brilliant stories. Yeah, he was a bit terrible for not submitting full scripts, but...
I just mean in the sense that...
He did have a tendency to reuse stuff, but when he had a good idea, he had a bloody great idea.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see what you mean. I just think that Hinchcliffe added his own vibe to that, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and Robert Holmes as well.
Yeah,
probably.
Robert Holmes as well. Yeah, of
course. I don't know how true that is. That's just me guessing based on Terry Nation's track record.
I think it was a joint effort between... Sorry about that. I think there was a joint effort between multiple forces with that, because, again, I can't see one person penning it. It just seems like the work of multiple different individuals.
I mean, somebody will have to ask Philip Hinchcliffe at convention about it, if they haven't done that already.
I mean, someone has probably asked, we just haven't got any record of it anywhere. So yeah, I think we, again, went on a bit of a tangent there, but that's cool. I
need to be whipped into line. Like, if you need to get us on new topics, you need to just say, it's bad, like, get back in line.
Normally I'm very good at transitions, I just can't come up with any today. I reckon it's just because I'm tired, but regardless of that, so obviously we talked a bit about how your channel started. What would you say is your favourite video on your channel?
Oh, that's really hard.
Or have you got a favourite? Or like a top 3?
I don't know. I can't necessarily think of a favourite. I can think of like some videos that were really important though, because early on in my channel it was very much your basic bitch Doctor Who fare, where it was like top 5s and best to worsts.
I think I found you by a top 5 or a bottom 5 of some description.
Yeah,
it was. I think it was worst Cyberman stories actually.
That was like the first proper one I did.
Yeah.
And I always thought that, you know, I wasn't really content with them, because even only a few months later I realised how much of them had changed. I didn't really feel like I was actually contributing anything to the Doctor Who community. I was just being another stain. Yeah. And then I made the what makes a good Dalek story, what makes a good Cyberman story videos. And I absolutely loved how they went. Because they were more analytical. They were looking at, right, what worked well in the show, what hasn't worked well in the show, how can we improve enough? Well, I'm actually adding something here. And then from then on, I started properly scripting my videos, and it just kind of went from there. Although in terms of some of the more fun videos, because I still do stuff like panel discussions, which aren't scripted, they're more just me arsing about this. And which ones would I say were quite fun? I mean, there's that my Oxygen panel discussion. I remember that was very funny, and that had an animation made of it by Scarosian filmmakers.
Oh wow, that's very cool.
And that End of Time rant of Shay, which is one of my more popular videos. That one also had an animation of it, and that was hilarious.
Yeah, that's a great list. I think for me, one of my recent favourites was actually your Praxeus video. Literally because you got so bored and you just started talking about straws. Love that.
I hated making most of those Series 12 panel discussions because most of the episodes were just boring. There was nothing to say. And that's why we ended up talking about straws. Like, I actually had to seriously edit that panel discussion. I almost never edit panel discussions unless one of us has said something that we needed removing.
Yeah.
I had to edit that one a lot because we did just end up talking about random shit like straws.
Yeah. I mean, that was the best part of it, though, because it was more entertaining than the actual... the actual episode. But obviously, we will get on to like that era momentarily. Of course.
Another thing kind of related to that is if you look at my "Can you hear me" panel discussion, you'll see that the thumbnail is done very badly. So like the bit of the top of the "Can you hear me" text is off the thing.
I've never noticed
and
that.
I was gonna edit that, but I thought, you know what? I don't care. I don't care enough to actually fix my thumbnail. It would literally take me 30 seconds to fix this thumbnail, but I don't care because the video, there wasn't much interesting to say. Can't be bothered. I mean, yeah.
I think, like, obviously, with those sorts of panel discussions, I really enjoy those because you do get multiple perspectives. And that is the one downside, because we talked about the upside of doing most things on your own. I do think that they offer multiple different perspectives, which I kind of like. And I think the best example of that in particular is the Timeless Children video that you did. Because despite, I think, you generally all disliking it, you all disliked it for different reasons. And I thought that was a really interesting thing with that video in particular, because there are so many different interpretations you can take from it. That episode in particular. Like for me, as you know, I did an essay sort of talking about why I think it makes the Doctor a sort of god. And I used the definitions and I sort of explained why I thought that, but like a lot of people didn't see it that way and they saw it as, sort of demystifying the character, which I agree with as well. And there's so many different sort of things you can take from that in particular.
Well, for me, the worst crime it commits is always going to be another bloody episode that's wading around in lore rather than actually going and telling a new story. Like, we spent a whole season not really... Like, there was a couple of interesting ideas in there, but not really much. And the BBC's marketing was basically like, oh yeah, all of this bollocks, just a waste of time, wait at the finale, that's where it's
that
really
was terrible. The marketing was atrocious.
And all it was just, like, a pointless canon change to fix, like, allegedly a plot hole from 1976 that nobody really cared about.
The thing that gets me about that though is that the same people who were complaining at Moffat for doing constant lore-based things and changing lore and doing lore-based episodes, when Timeless Children came out, I saw a good portion of them praising it, and I'm like, how is this any different?
I get that because I've been very consistent on this issue. I criticise Moffat for it, and I criticise Chibnall for it. If anything, I'm criticising Chibnall more because at least Moffat told it in a weird way. Sometimes that weird way was absolutely horrible, but at least it was better than a PowerPoint presentation.
At least it had some creative flair. At least it had a vision, some style behind it.
It wasn't just the master gives a PowerPoint presentation before Jodie Whittaker decided none of it mattered anyway, and then the episode ends.
Yeah, it's what Stu Bagfull said. It says he basically shows her a PowerPoint presentation that says "You are adopted," and that's basically what that's what it is. Oh god. I guess we can go into that sort of now. Actually, I mean, we've already sort of started it, so I think with this year in particular, I know myself, I've gone on a bit of a journey with it. Because, obviously, I don't know how much you know about me in particular.
No, I do.
About me? Or about...
about when you were kind of getting in with a Bowell Street kind of scene a couple of years ago,
Yeah, and that's not a time, I've said this multiple times, but it's not a time I look back on with particular fondness. Good on you. Yeah, no, thank you, man. It's one of those things, I think I was so sort of, I just didn't like Series 11, and, the voices who didn't like Series 11 at the time were them. There wasn't as much, to my knowledge, reasoned criticism of it.
the whole time.
What was that? I missed that.
I said I was here the whole time.
I mean, yeah, true. But I mean,
And me and my mates as
I
well.
suppose
We all did
what I mean by that is that the ones that YouTube was recommending the most were the ones that were like that, for lack of a better term. And I think it was very easy to get sucked into that. And I think,
Well, I mean, what sells better? What sells advertisements better? Yes, I think that although there were some admirable things that Series 11 did, it was a bit crap again because blah 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 writing, blah 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 characterization, blah blah blah, or just it is terrible how the BBC has a racial agenda, blah.
yeah.
What sells better? Definitely the things with a lot of buzzwords in.
So yeah, that was sort of the beginning of my journey. Whereas now, I like to think I've become a bit more, not fair on it, but I criticise it for things that actually matter.
I think so.
Because at the end of the day, what difference does it make? Like, realistically, if they had, let's say Chibnall had a male actor who had the same characterization and acting ability as Jodie, I'd still think it was equally as shit.
Yeah, it would not make any difference, really, if they were exactly the same but male.
Yeah.
It'd be the same shit.
It would be, like, exactly the same. I don't think it would improve the show whatsoever. So at that point, there's not really any reason to critique the stuff like that, because
just some of it is really mean-spirited, because I never actually watched a Bell Street video until a few months ago when I went on the EDAR live stream, which is the YouTuber Genesis of Andrews Arnie's live stream he does with Editron, and I was on it for their Bowel Street episode. I'm watching Bowel Street videos. And this is the first time I'd ever actually saw him. Like, the only bit I'd ever saw was when he was saying that the demons of the Punjab is white genocide or something horrifically racist like that.
Yeah.
And then just some of the things he was saying were just really unnecessary. Like, in his Fugitive of the Judoon video, he goes on a tangent about how, millennials and Gen Z are terrible generations, and you need to look up to your older people or something stupid like that. And it's like, what does this actually have to do with Doctor Who?
Yeah.
And then you have like the video where he pretends to be this goat called Professor Dinkles, and he rants about Jodie Whittaker wearing a silly dress on her birthday, and then talking about how Graham has cake privilege or something stupid like that. It's not only very unfunny, it's the fact that he's saying all sorts of nasty stuff about Jodie Whittaker on her birthday because she wore like a silly birthday dress. And I just thought in that moment, this is the worst Doctor Who video on the internet. Because there is stuff where it's just like,
oh, there's stuff that's taken the crown for me since.
Like there's some children like sitting in a dark room kind of whispering, oh guys, I'm going to talk about why I'm going to Bride's my favourite episode. And that's not very entertaining to watch. But at least it just isn't so mean.
Yeah, I think the crown has been taken for me by one of the alumni of that group, for lack of a better term. And everyone will know who I'm on about. You probably won't, but everyone watching this will know who I'm referring to. I won't say his name, but once I say off recording, you'll know who I'm on about. But he's taken the place, in my view, as the worst Doctor Who YouTuber ever. Just because, at least with Mr. Strack's videos, they were somewhat, you could understand what was going on during them. Imagine, all of the bile that comes out of Bolstrack videos, but without the ability to edit.
Oh, send some over, mate. So we can I can get Connor to do them on his EDAR podcast.
You might know who I'm on about when I say, but I won't say just for the sake of, I guess, just not causing another Twitter spat, because we got into a bit of a thing online.
Oh, don't worry. They think that me and Connor are bullies because we criticised those Battle Street videos in which he actually did bully somebody.
Yeah. The thing I love about the Doctor Who fandom as it is at the moment is because I'm not liked by either side,
Yeah, me too.
When I released that Timeless Child essay, I had people saying, "Oh, bad take, way to miss the point of the arc," without even watching the video. And it's like, okay, but then you have the other side calling me a traitor to their cause.
What? Actually, thinking about it, this is another thing because we're talking about like the kind of cultural history of Doctor Who YouTube, Doctor Who Twitter, and stuff like that. I remember for the longest time, and this is even before I was Lord Slarr, just when I was still Lord Slarr, but didn't have a video on my channel. It was always like, because I was the big classic Who fan, I was always like one of those horrible classic elitists you're supposed to fear and run away from, and who are the massive haters and stuff. And ever since this whole Not My Doctor stuff has started, we don't get a bad rap anymore. All of a sudden, we're all right.
No,
We're like
really
allowed to exist. Like, it's great.
But I remember. Do you remember when? Do you know Demi Lubing?
Yeah.
Obviously, she used to rag on the 10th Doctor, and she used to be considered the most controversial Doctor Who YouTuber ever. Simpler times. Simpler times.
That's what I mean. She's a very perfect example of it, really, because she, like, so many people who probably like follow and like her tweets now probably wouldn't have been able to stand her a few years ago, when there was like a lot of people who, whenever they saw somebody who doesn't like New Who and likes classic Who, they were like, oh,
Yeah.
Whereas that's kind of been allowed to become a commonplace opinion,
I won't lie, I
because
think
it no longer seems like the most extreme opinion in the Doctor Who.
I also think has been a certain rise in classic Who content as well, thanks to people predominantly like Josh Snares, who popularized it more than anyone else seemed to, in terms of numbers.
I think there's more factors than. I mean, he's definitely done a good
No,
job.
I'm not saying he's the only
I,
factor.
I do have some theories. For one, 2016, I think was a big one. Having no Doctor Who that year, I think, got a lot of people to start watching Classic Who. And then you also had the big Classic Who live stream they did in 2017. And then at that point, it was like, well, there's no excuse not to watch Classic Who now. They're putting it on for free on the internet,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I do think there are multiple sort of factors to the, rising popularity of classic Who on YouTube in particular. But I highlighted him because he seemed to be the one who just broke like boundaries in terms of like just pure numbers. I was like,
oh, that's true, yeah, because he must be the most popular Doctor Who YouTuber that I'd say predominantly does Classic Who content.
I
Would you say that's
so.
fair?
Yeah, I would say that's fair. Like, the only other one I could think of that would come close would be Clever Dick Films with his documentary series on each incarnation of the show.
I remember when I started, it wasn't just like there wasn't many YouTube channels that just covered Classic Who for the most part. There wasn't many YouTube channels that did any of Classic Who. I mean, like there were, but they were very, very small. There was no channels that were like much higher than 1,000 subscribers doing it.
So essentially, you did Classic Who before it was cool.
No, I'm just saying that it has come on at leaps and bounds, because I did it in 2015 because I was so frustrated with the lack of Classic Who content, not just on YouTube but just generally. But now it's everywhere. So there's not much of a reason to complain now, because Classic Who is getting a pretty fair shake these days.
It is as well, especially with things like BritBox and the Blu-ray releases. It does seem to be getting a lot more press.
And the animations, yeah. Like the BBC are actually pushing it rather than avoiding it. Like some kind of, bastard child they're hiding in the loft.
Yeah, it's almost like how I imagine Sony treat the Amazing Spider-Man films now, where it's sort of like they're a secret that just lock them away. don't re-release them or anything. But no, I do think there has certainly been a resurgence in classic Who stuff, especially recently. I do wonder if the rise in Doctor Who YouTube in general is the result of there being less Doctor Who content as a whole from the main show. Like these days. Like, we used to get a series every year. Whereas now it's like, a series once every 2. If we're lucky, and like maybe a special thrown in there somewhere. And I think that's forced people to get a bit more creative with what they make and, what they consume Doctor Who-wise. Perhaps.
I think it's also because there's lots of very tight-knit communities as well, which keep each other going.
Yeah. Like,
Because like,
yeah,
yeah, there's a very like if you're like most Doctor Who YouTubers, most Doctor Who YouTube viewers, even if they don't watch all of the other Doctor Who YouTubers, they're usually aware of them
yeah,
tangentially.
yeah. Like, it's always quite weird for me because I kind of grew up watching a lot of them, and then like it's always weird when I go onto like Ace Creeper's stream or something, or someone's premiere or something like that. And
I
when
went to school with Ace Creeper, you know.
did you?
Yeah, I was in the same school as him.
Oh, that's bizarre. I had
We
no
went to
idea.
scouts together as well.
Oh wow, I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea you two were that close. That's actually shocked me. I don't know what to say to that in rebuttal. Fun fact: I have a yellow Paradigm Dalek and a Missy figure that were from George because he was selling them, and I was like, I need to bolster my collection a bit.
He dated my cousin for about a week.
Oh wow, I had no idea you were that close. That's that's really cool, actually. I mean, you were
And
right about it being a close knit community.
we've always we've been like, friends. I'd say since like when we were in Scouts quite often. I actually remember when he hit 1,000 subscribers because we were doing a Scout night in the woods, and oh god, I'm gonna need to get into a lot of context
Go
here.
on, do it.
This is completely unrelated to Doctor Who, other than the fact that this is when Ace Creeper hit 1,000 subscribers. So the scouts were kind of doing this thing where you'd get to pitch a night to so that the scout, like some groups of the people there, like me and other people could do like their own themed night of activities, just so
Right.
they could have some more input on what was done. And because as a teenager I was an edgy meme lord, I thought, yeah, let's do Shrek night, where basically we all went down to the woods and then made about 5 people Shrek, and and everybody was given an onion to safeguard, and like the Shreks would chase after people and then take them back to the swamp. And then if you managed to get to me with your onion, because I was hiding somewhere in the forest, you get a donut.
Oh wow.
And George got there, got his donut. I was like, "Oh, I'm about to hit 1,000 subscribers," and we watched him get
That's
1,000 subscribers in the
that's
woods on Shrek
that's
Night.
quite a good impression of George as well. That's almost spot on. Oh, I love it. Oh, I'm just loving the image of him and you running about
It was a
Shrek.
great image of how he got to 1,000 subscribers. I mean, when I got 1,000 subscribers, I was just like laying in my bed, like, oh yeah, 1,000. Oh no, my friend unsubscribed just that second because he was pissed
Yeah,
off.
actually,
That's what happened to me. But he actually did it in an exciting place, you know?
so was I actually. I was in bed, like at my dad's though, and I remember like all of a sudden the numbers just kept going up, and I was like, oh, okay, something must have hit a chord, and it did. I don't know, I can't remember the video that did, but something just tipped it over the edge, which was cool. I think like yeah, that's a much cooler 1,000 subscriber story. I don't think he's ever said. Has he ever said that in a video? I can't
I
remember.
don't know if he did. He may have done,
Because I
but
know he
I
does a
know it
podcast of
definitely
his
happened.
own.
I remember it.
He does do.
I need to ask him about it. Go
Yeah.
ask him about it in the comment section.
Ace, if you're watching this, we want to know the Shrek story from your perspective. Make an entire video about it. How Shrek got my channel to 1,000 subscribers.
He got over 1,000 subscribers while running away from Shrek, and
I
that
love
is
it.
your Ace Creeper fact of the day.
Wow, that's something I never knew I needed to hear. But now that I have, I love that I have. Um, I can't actually remember what we were talking about now. Um, I've actually just gone on a complete. My brain has just gone. Okay, yeah, current era stuff. Let's get back onto the boring official
Oh, can we
stuff
not
now.
talk about like Shrek some more? Much better.
All right, favorite Shrek movie. Only quickly because I know people will click
No,
off
no,
of
no,
it.
sorry, let's just do Doctor Who.
Okay, fair enough. What was I gonna say? Right, that's what I was gonna say. So yeah, what I was gonna say about my sort of evolution is that now I kind of see it as, you know, Chris Chibnall is shit, but so is Volstrak. That's how I sort of see it now. It's like, I criticise both of them. That's how that's the
We are
point.
the true radical centrists.
Yeah, that's the point I was attempting to culminate towards. I think before we went on a tangent.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm very bad at that if you don't keep me in
That's
mind.
alright. And oh, and also, I was saying how whenever I go on like one of Ace's premieres or like live streams now, there'll be one person who recognizes me, and it's really strange because I've watched Ace for ages. I think for I say ages, probably since he started covering like Series 11 news. I think like back in like 2018 is when I probably started watching him. It's about 2 years. So
I remember when he was making Five Nights at Freddy's content. That's how long I've been subscribed.
oh god, hasn't everyone been through a phase where they just made game stuff? Like I did. I had a channel called. Oh, do I say this? Do I
I
say
mean,
this
I didn't
online?
say mine. It's not. It's not worth it, man. The cringe people will
No, I'm
find.
gonna
This
say
will
it.
be a cringe mine.
It will be a cringe mine, but I'm gonna say it. Spider Bat. That was a cringy ass name, and it had a terrible fan art, not even done by me, of a Spider-Man Batman hybrid. That was the profile picture. It was so bad. And I did a GTA 4 Spider-Man video because I was watching this channel called The Gaming Lemon, who did GTA 4 mods, and I was like, I want to do that. And it actually got 1K for some bizarre reason.
Wait, you got a 1K subscribers?
No, 1K views.
Oh right.
For some bizarre reason, like bear in mind that was like my second video. I'm like, what? Why? And I sort of showed my dad, and he was like, "You're too young to be doing this," and I had to take it down, which is a blessing in disguise because from what I can remember, it was god awful, and I have no idea why 1,000 people clicked on it. But
The algorithm moves in mysterious
it
ways.
really
Like
does.
my randomly most viewed video is like a Big Finish video of all things, which you wouldn't think so because it's quite
No.
obscure, obviously. But I actually investigated, and it turns out for some reason the algorithm puts my video really close to the top if you search Big Finish. Like it's only about 10 down.
Oh, I see. Interesting. Uh, it is weird how the algorithm works because like I'll make a video that I think by my logic, will, do well, and it just doesn't. And then something I don't expect to do well, some sort of really easily made thing. I say easily made, an easier process will just all of a sudden get like 10K, and you're like, oh. Well, I kind of wish it was the other video, but it's nice, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a video I spent ages scripting and kind of thinking about and watched episodes for get like 500 views, and then like when I was in the middle of my dissertation, I just needed to put out a video because it'd been like a month. I was just like, right, here we go. Darling Stories tier list, that's good enough. Gone, slam, and then that's like over 1,000 views or something.
Yeah, it's
Whether that might be the season ranking one. It's just like, for God's sake, my like normie lazy video I did just because I was busy doing my dissertation gets like 1,000 views. Ones I actually put effort in.
I think
Who cares?
my favorite example, well, of my channel at least, is like when I made I've like for reference, like I made a video called How to Pilot TARDIS, and it was all done within a game engine called Gary's Mod, and it was fully researched, and I used the officially bought Type 40 TARDIS manual and the TARDIS index files, which is a site online that goes through all the controls and all the different functions, and I went really into detail to the extent that the thumbnail actually has How to Pilot the TARDIS hidden and written in Gallifreyan, and the name of the fictional, I guess, AI type thing, AI Time Lord type, basically Siri for Time Lords. It's called the Scribe, which is apparently my name in Gallifreyan. So I really went into research for that. That got 3.6k views, which for me is pretty good. But what makes that even saltier, I think, is I made a video that's so bad, a Jodie Whittaker regeneration edit, in the style of like, I made it look deliberately as much like a real one as possible. That video got, the TARDIS one got like 3,000 views, which is pretty good by my standards, but for what I put into it, I expected more. And then that one that I threw together in like an afternoon got like 80,000, and I'm just like, oh, so sad. And it's so bad as well. I really want that video to be taken over by something else. I don't know what. It could literally be anything at this point. So if you're watching, make something else my most popular video.
Well, if you want to get the mega views, you just need to go back to doing Battle Street content.
Yeah, that's true, actually. All of a sudden, I just revert. I mean...
So, they say sex sells, but in this case, sexism sells.
I thought you were gonna say virginity sells. I thought you were gonna imply...
That's even better.
I thought you were gonna imply that, but, I mean, that works too.
I just did that for the pun, not gonna lie.
That's fair enough. No, yeah, I keep losing my train of thought.
I'm good at that.
This is probably my most disorganized podcast in history. Congratulations. I'm kidding.
I feel very proud.
You should. No, I think what I was trying to say was YouTube. That's why I would never suggest doing YouTube as a job for anyone. It's not a job for me. I have made some money off of it, but it's not enough to be considered job worthy.
I've got a bone to pick with that. I monetized my channel before they had the restrictions in place.
Right.
And you know how YouTube only pays out when you get £60?
Yeah.
Well, I've been on £58 for 3 years now, nearly 3 years, because I can't remonetize my channel to get like the £2 extra to get the £60 that's locked away in Google's ivory tower.
Wait, why can't you remonetize?
Because I mean, I've only just got over the subscriber threshold, which was 1,000, and
Right.
then I need about like 100 more watch hours to get over the 40,000 watch hours.
Oh no! Oh man, I'm sorry.
I'll be there soon. It's because I went through a phase of not really uploading stuff for about 3 months last year, and I think that's probably what's meant that isn't quite there. I think just with a few more videos, it'll get over that line.
If I remember correctly, that's what took me the longest as well, was the 4,000 watch hours thing. So I relate to the struggle. That was the thing that took me the longest as well. I think that is the case for most people as well, though. So I don't think you're alone. So there's that.
Like, I don't really even care about the money, but it's just like, I may as well have the 60 quid. Go on. Give me the 60 quid.
For all that work, you may as well. It's like, that's another thing as well. For the amount of work you put in, like I think pretty much all the money that I've made off of it has either gone back into it.
Really? But I am extremely lazy with making my videos. Like, the scripting, like, I was going on about how, the episodes have put lots of, stuff into, blah, 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 blah. I don't actually spend a huge amount of time because I don't do much editing on my videos. Most of the work I do is put into the script if I'm doing one, and that's about it, really. I'm very lazy.
To be honest,
I've bought nothing to do it either. It's all just regular computer mic, free video editing software, etc.
To be fair, I still use a copy of pirated Sony Vegas, so totally legit Sony Vegas
video editor. Free.
Yeah, totally legit Sony Vegas. To be fair, this is probably my laziest series, which is ironic because people seem to love it. Despite it not being like the most viewed sort of series, it's like the one that is most consistent, and obviously because it's so long, you have the watch time aspect of it as well.
I'm surprised you don't get more views on it then, because you've had quite a few big names on here.
Yeah, it's slowly picked up, but the difficulty with the podcast is it's very difficult to market, because you can put, I suppose you can put clickbaity titles into it, but now that I've sort of established a title style for the podcast, I don't really want to deviate from it, because it's just, uniformity, I guess. I don't know. But it is slowly picking up. Like, I've had 2 go over the 1K threshold, that being the Stu Bagful one that you watched and the Clever Dick Films one. Those are the 2 that have gone over. And I think maybe the Nitpicks one might, because I think it's on 800 and something odd, so that could maybe eventually claw its way up to it as well.
Go on, you slug army, get this up to 1,000 views.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I mean, I've only probably got about 20 videos over 1,000 views, but do it anyway.
I think I've got about 50, give or take. I think about half. I think it's about half and half split.
Actually, I think I probably do have more than that over 1,000 views, but it's just like a lot of them are some of my early top fives and stuff that I don't really care about. It's like, yeah, whatever. They can be whatever view count they want. I don't care.
I do love, though, it was very cathartic that my second most popular video is like a video essay I worked really hard on, basically talking about why Doctor Who's been repetitive for the past 10 years.
I tell you what, for me, views aren't actually best now, even though I have more subscribers. My views were best during Series 10.
Yeah,
and they've
because
never
you
got
did a
the same
video
levels.
on, I think David Bradley is the first Doctor that did quite well, if I'm remembering that.
Oh, that's because I was breaking the news.
Yeah.
But no, just even if you take that out, just all of the Series 10 videos did really well. And all of the ones like slightly before it and slightly after it did really well. And then just, I don't know, ever since the Chibnall era has kind of started, views have been down quite a lot.
I think maybe it's because, like, I suppose with me, it's such a big part of, I hate saying brand, but you know what I mean, it's like what's synonymous with my channel, if you like, whereas I would argue that you're more synonymous with Classic Who stuff. So when
that has been. But that's fine.
I mean, to be fair,
I like the audience I have, so I'm not bothered.
I've been taken over by a bunch of people recently, and power to them, though, they're great content creators. But you do end up starting to feel like you're irrelevant after a while. It's like,
I mean, I've never really been relevant, but my slight, ever, like, just little tiny bit of relevance came in Series 10 and went as soon as it came.
I think when I was most relevant was probably the latter end of Series 12. Like, because I started to realise that no one gives a shit if you wait a week to put out a video on the episode. Or at least my audience didn't. And I know some people, do wait a week per episode to really script it out. But I was like, nah, I'm just going to do reactions either the day of or the day after. And for some reason that worked way better. Like, I remember thinking, going into Series 12, I was going to do like Harry's Moving Castle style reviews of each story that would take me a few days. And the first one I did, and the only one I did, Spyfall Part 1, got like 200 odd views, which was bad for me at the time. I just remember being like, what do I do?
That's lower than I got on my Spyfall video, and you've got way more subs.
Exactly, so I was like, what do I do? And I realised that people didn't want to wait, so I had to be like, okay, from Fugitive onwards, I'll just do reactions, and the Fugitive reaction got 10,000 views.
But that's why I've been doing my panel discussions, because it gets them out quickly. The problem is, though, I found that I just end up disagreeing with most of what I say in the panel discussions because I kind of go to it too soon. You'll see me praise episodes I now don't like at all. Like, I was pretty warm on Kablam and Spyfall when they first came out. Yeah. But as I've looked back, I've kind of realised, actually, no, they weren't very good. I was just trying very hard to enjoy them. Because it was like, yes, it's not Moffat, but
I had a similar thing with Can You Hear Me? Because I'm a big fan of dream type stories, concepts like that. Like Amy's Choice to this day is one of my favourite Modern Who stories.
I love Amy's Choice. That's one of the female Smith episodes I do quite like.
Dream concepts in general. So when I heard that they were going to do a dream episode of Series 12, I was like, yes, this will be it. And I think my reaction, because I was relatively warm on it, for me at least, because I went on, as I mentioned before, Time of the Heathens, the group channel, they did the series called Did It Fails, where they basically got another creator on with them to sort of do a similar thing to what you do with the panel discussions, but a bit more structured, in the sense of it was like a sort of bullet point conversation type thing. And I remember being quite warm on it, and I look back on it now, I'm like, yeah, I think that was just because I wanted a dream episode to be good. And,
Yeah, that's the problem with the immediate reactions, because sometimes you are trying very hard to like something that takes a while to kind of accept that, yeah, no.
I mean, to be honest, some of them I stand by, like my Praxeus one, yeah, my opinion on Praxeus has not changed at all. I still think it's incredibly boring. It's
Mine too. And I think one of the best panel discussions I did in terms of just a very consistent opinion was Lie of the Land. I absolutely tore that to shreds, and I agree with everything I said there.
yeah,
I almost feel like I've always wanted to do a scripted video on it, kind of completely deconstruct it, but I kind of thought I kind of did that in the panel discussion
yeah.
mostly. So
That's the thing as well. Like with me, when I do scripted videos, I like doing scripted videos, but they do take a lot. They do drain me if I commit myself to a big script. So that's why I'll do like some of the easier content in between, i.e., news. You know.
I've got two videos that I've been meaning to make for years now. The first one's a Hellbent video that people keep on telling me to do because I didn't do Series 9 panel discussions. And I remember saying, "Oh, I'm going to do a Hellbent video," because I was a bit annoyed that there was kind of some hipsters starting to say like, "Oh, Hellbent wasn't bad, you just didn't get it."
Oh
And then
yeah.
the other one is like a big video on Peter Capaldi's Doctor and where I think it went wrong,
Because I
which
think
that will
the
be very unpopular, and that's why I feel the need to really put the effort into that when I do it, because I know I've got to make it absolutely fucking spotless,
I'm glad you
because they will prey on anything, the
I'm,
Capaldi fans.
I'm glad you mentioned that actually, because I remember writing a tweet saying 12 was overrated, and I remember you liking it, but I just remember getting an onslaught of Capaldi fans. Capaldi
They're the
fans.
worst, man. I mean, sorry if you're a Capaldi fan, because I'm
Yeah,
sure most of you aren't like that, but
it wasn't 12 specifically. It was 12's era was overrated. Was what I
yeah.
said.
But then you get swarmed if you say anything about Capaldi or Capaldi's era.
Like
Sometimes,
I'll be honest.
and
I
the same
think
with Flora, but just from one specific user.
yeah. I think I remember you telling me about this.
They're a one-person army, though. So
But no, I think Capaldi's performances are always great. I just don't like the characterization throughout most of it, and I think his stories are predominantly really weak.
absolutely 100%, man. And that's
Like,
why I want to do a video on it. But as I say,
bring me
it's going
on.
to take a lot of motivation to do, because I need to do a lot of research and rewatch a lot of stories I don't want to rewatch.
Bring me on as well to do it. I'll do it with you because I need to get that off my chest as well. I think I did do.
Well, I could do it in the panel discussion format. I don't know. I kind of wanted to script it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, you can do that. I have actually got one in the pan with Harbour talking about why 12's overrated. I just haven't released it yet because the way I recorded an 11 one about why I like 11 with someone else, but it didn't turn out very well, so I want to re-record that one before I release the 12 one because we mentioned the 11 one in the 12 video, so it would sound
but
good.
what is it? Is this series every Doctor is shit? Here's why.
No, it was basically my idea was to do like the most controversial Doctor opinions like on each of them. So like for me like 11 is the best, my favorite Doctor personally, and that's a quite an unpopular opinion these days.
I thought you were saying you were doing one about why 11 was overrated.
No, I did one on why 12 is overrated.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
I'll definitely do one on why 13 is the worst, even though I've probably made that video like 5 separate times if you like conflate all my videos together. Um, but yeah, it's just my opinions on each Doctor. I think that's what I was going for with that sort of series idea. I probably will still do it at some point. There's not really going to be much chronology to it, but what can you do? Um, what was I going to say? I'm glad you mentioned that though, because obviously I remember writing that tweet and just getting an onslaught of Capaldi fans being like, he's not overrated, he's overhated, and I'm like, all right then, chill out. Like,
I don't get how people can think that he's overhated when every single tweet about him, if it's positive, gets a ton of love, and if it's negative, gets a ton of hate.
the way
It's
I
like
like to think about it is
the people are generally on his side, and he is a great actor and seems like a lovely man. But his Doctor, I'm sorry, I didn't like it. It
the way
wasn't
I
very
like to
well
think
written.
about it is the 12th Doctor wasn't received well by the general public. Hence, there's a group of people now who are very protective over the 12th Doctor. Whereas with 11,
I, I think that's not really that true.
I mean, I
He
don't know,
wasn't.
because I think 11 had the reverse effect where he was quite liked by the general public, and as a result, there's a certain section of fans who think, oh, he's overrated. And I think
I think that Doctor Who was already waning in popularity, And then and then because it looked like it correlated with Peter Capaldi joining the show, this kind of narrative created that people were turned off by Capaldi, an old man being the Doctor, blah blah blah. But I just think people were getting sick of the way Moffat was writing Doctor Who, and the hangover from the RTD era, which had generated a lot of interest, was kind of wearing off, and people just like the general public weren't interested in the kind
The
of
honeymoon phase was over.
more baiting that Moffat was doing because they didn't really understand what was going on.
Yeah, no,
And
that's fair.
and then, like, you've got, I think the BBC themselves were very happy to blame it on Peter Capaldi's Doctor because in multiple news articles they've said, "Oh yeah, the Capaldi's Doctor wasn't the most well liked." Blah blah
Yeah,
blah
yeah.
blah.
They even said when Whittaker was cast, like, oh, he wasn't universally loved. I'm like, that's your
Yeah,
star, man. That's rude. I'm sorry, that is just rude. I've always thought though.
but people in the general public don't really have an opinion on Capaldi from what my experience.
Yeah, most of
I
them.
don't think it's. I think it's a narrative that's kind of built up, and the BBC have been happy to perpetuate because it suits their interest to make it look like the show isn't dying. It was just
Yeah,
the bad casting.
it was
But
just
I
yeah.
think it was the opposite.
If anything,
Great
I would
casting,
say
but
like
bad show.
like with Capaldi, it was a bad show, and I think like in terms of like the BBC how they treated him, I've always thought there was more to his departure than was let on because it all just seemed very sudden. It was like
I I think it was the right time though.
no, I'm not saying it wasn't the right time necessarily, but like he says, oh, he said in like a interview at some point, oh, I'm going to be the longest serving Doctor. I'm going to be here for like 5 years, and then he says about how he's going to be excited to work with Chris, and then a couple of weeks later he says he's leaving, and it all just seemed very close together to the point where I just imagine a BBC exec going, hey, so ratings aren't doing too great. We need to change. It's time to move on.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. I think that that's very, very possible.
And because I just can't see him willingly going then,
The
especially when
Chevalier does almost seem like an exec directed thing in the sense that it's just like,
yeah,
right, let's just have all of the surface level characteristics of the RTD era, but with none of the interesting writing because they didn't really understand what made it work.
because I remember an article coming out before Whittaker was cast saying that they wanted to make the Doctor more of a swashbuckling man again, and
Well, they didn't do that.
irrespective of the gender. Well, they specifically said they wanted a Tennant type in the article, and I mean, irrespective of the gender, that's kind of what they did.
I mean, yeah, she's kind of very surface level like Tennant. I mean, even though I didn't like how David
Uh,
Tennant's Doctor was written, there was actually a lot of substance there and
yeah,
a lot of interesting writing.
and
There's none of
like
that with Jodie Whittaker.
with the way apparently with Series 11 wasn't written with a gender in mind, so it's not impossible to suspect that they wrote it essentially for a Tennant clone, and then all of a sudden they're like, how do we make this different? I know, and they stick a woman in it.
That was pretty much the only radical change.
Exactly. So like, it's not impossible to suspect that that's how they, that was their way of changing it up, and obviously all the marketing that comes with it, with the smashing of the glass and whatever, which I
And
still.
it kind of worked initially, but it's completely wearing off now.
Well, yeah, because as I've always said, it was a novelty factor, and once that
See,
novelty
and
wears
the
off,
novelty factor only would have held if it was actually going to retain people's interest, which it didn't,
which
because it was crap.
like, don't get me wrong, there's always been a sense of novelty with every Doctor's casting for the most part. Like, they always
Oh
had
yeah,
something that set them apart. Like, especially with New Who as well. Like, Matt Smith was the young one, Capaldi was the old one. Tennant was the, for lack of a better term, hot one in a lot of people's eyes. Let's be honest. There's a lot of certain people who do see him as the attractive one. Let's not beat around the
oh God,
bush.
I mean that's a controversial opinion. I don't know if you're going to get away with that.
It's true though, isn't it? There are people who only watched it because of David Tennant. We
Oh,
can't
no, I
deny.
was joking at the fact that you were saying, David Tennant, people thought he was attractive.
Oh right, yes. Oh, he wasn't all he did. That was my point. Like they've always had a thing that sort of set them apart in the eyes of the general public, at least. And I think Jodie, much kind of like the Ghostbusters of the 2016, will go down in history as the woman one. Like, that's how I think she'll probably go down in history, which is a
I
shame.
know she's still got at least one more season. I don't hold that much hope, but I'm not going to judge prematurely.
I mean, to be fair, we judge Chris Eccleston off one series,
Well,
and
yeah, because he was great.
and we judge
Well, he's had a whole era though.
and up
Doommaker, even though it's a
and
longer
and
era, hasn't had a whole era.
and up until McGann started Big Finish, we judged him off the movie. We judged on her primarily off of Day of the Doctor. I think it's, I don't know, at this point I feel like you can have a concrete judgment on a Doctor. I think it's disingenuous, like, I'm not saying like you're disingenuous, but I think it's disingenuous
I
when,
agree that you can have like a full opinion on it, but you can't like I don't know, you can't put a like an end to the book yet. You can only put a
no.
bookmark in it.
But it's just kind of like when people say, oh, it'll get better next series. It's like, yeah,
Oh,
but,
we did that in the Moffat era every time.
yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, well, they're just saving it for next series.
And I notice it more now. I think maybe because I'm a bit more switched on to how writing works as well. Like back in the Moffat era, like obviously 11 was my childhood era. That's what I watched from start to finish. I have a lot of nostalgia for that. So I do admit, I look back on particularly series 6 and 7 with some rose tinted glasses. Series 8 and 9 and 10, obviously series 9 was when I sort of went off the show for a bit. So I don't look back on Capaldi's era particularly fondly. And
See, it's 6 and 7 that put me off the show
yeah,
for a while.
I think that is again a matter of perspective though, because I was younger, so it was like my sort of, oh yeah, my childhood era, you know. Which is why I think, as I said, there's a lot of Series 6 I still don't quite understand to this day, but I still have a warm feeling about it. And Series 7, obviously, I think
I have a warm feeling about it, but that's just my blood boiling.
Series 7 I do think is underrated, but like that's my hill to die on.
Let's move off this topic. I don't like it.
Praising Series 7, boo. um, but yeah, I think it's weird to me now. I hate this culture that we live in where certain opinions are considered bad takes. Because in my opinion, unless your take is actively harming somebody, there is no such thing as a bad take. I don't think. Like,
most of the time, people say that quite tongue in cheek.
I mean, yeah, I think some people do genuinely like think it's a valid critique of someone's argument, which is concerning. More than anything else, the best retort you could come up with was bad take, but I think as well it's part of Twitter being such a limited form of communication. Like you can only have like how many characters is it on Twitter in total?
200 something.
200 odd. It's not a lot.
No, yeah, and I don't. That's why I do YouTube, because I can actually get into the meat of things rather than just like have a shouting match with somebody on Twitter where I can't actually get into the nuances of what I think.
Yeah, that's true. I've slowly realised that Twitter stuff is just bad. And
I try to avoid arguments on there as much as possible. Often, if somebody posts something like a reply of me, it's just like, you know what, I can't be bothered to actually go through with them because it's Twitter. Like, I'm not actually going to be able to express my opinion well. It's just going to come off as bad. And also, there's something about Twitter, just even when it's not just like an in-depth argument, it just sometimes something comes off the wrong way. Like when I say things, it's kind of meant to be tongue-in-cheek, sarcastic, and then
yeah,
somebody thinks that I've said something horrific.
yeah. I think it's one of those things with Twitter as well. Like I've gotten into conflict with people, and people have just been like, "Mate, just leave it." But I'm a very, I'm argumentative. Maybe the wrong term. Well, no, argumentative is the right. When I get into an argument, I find it very difficult to walk away, so to speak, from it. And like I've slowly learned to get better at that, but like obviously with the guy I mentioned earlier who shall not be named, the friend of Bolstrek, obviously I got into things with him over Twitter, and it caused this like mini controversy within that sort of Doctor Who like
I saw that.
Yeah, I think you know what I'm on about now.
Yeah.
A very obscure part of the Doctor Who sort of fan base, and
Dark side.
yeah, it caused a massive controversy. Like, they were literally, like, commentary style videos detailing the drama. And I'm like, I don't think I'm ready for this. I don't think I'm ready to be subjective.
Wait. There was like a drama alert for Doctor Who.
Yeah, for that specifically. There was, there was multiple videos saying, former, former Not My Doctor alumni, Tharries and also in conflict. And I'm like, oh my god, this is a thing that exists. Why? And like, legit, no word of a lie. My video saying that I'm going to end the conflict got 1,400 views, which for what I thought was a tiny Twitter spat between two YouTubers no one cared about, I wasn't expecting that much of a reaction.
So let's start some drama. I've only just realised the potential of this.
Who do you hate?
I don't know. I have a group chat on Twitter. Maybe I'll invite you into it at some point.
Yeah,
But it's very much the super underground group chat where we say things that we wouldn't get away with in public.
fair enough.
And then they've got a few accounts on there who it's called Shit Doctor Who Opinions. And basically, we're just railing on people who have shit takes.
Well,
we can't bother responding publicly. And there's just like, there's a few number one public enemies that are just like machine guns of bad takes. Like, it's just every day, just, oh my god, oh.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I probably have a bad take every now and again, but I try and sort of.
And don't worry, you've never been on them, I don't think.
Okay, that's good. I'll take that then. What was I going to say? I was going to say something about that, and it's gone. Oh yeah, I remember what I was going to say. So someone infiltrated a Not My Doctor group chat.
Oh, that Antonio.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's great.
And, yeah, I think there was a couple others who managed to get in on it as well. And I just remember being on screen, like, I remember someone messaging saying, like, oh, who should we, like, stay away from? That's not my doctors, who should we stay away from? And, like, I was on the list. And I shit you not, that was one of my proudest moments online.
Sad I wasn't on the list, to be honest. I want to be on the list. Come on, I've insulted Bell Street publicly, not just here, but on Connor's podcast.
I think the reason I was on the list is specifically because I go against them and I sort of say why I don't like them anymore.
Come on, get me on your hate list, please. I really want to be on your hate list.
But like, that was like my proudest moment, because you know what, it showed to me that people can now distinguish me from the Nummeds, as we like to call them.
Yeah, that's your character development. More character development than Ryan. This is like the same kind of when he like learns to throw the basketball in Series 12. Like, that's your basketball moment.
That is my basketball moment. Go from being a Not My Doctor to not being a Not My Doctor. That's a very...
So you're a not my doctor. No, sorry, a not my doctor.
Yes, that is what I am. That is what I shall now identify as from here on out. Is a not my doctor. To be honest, I hate the whole sides thing in general, though. Like, it's so dumb. Like, you've got one side calling them J-bots as well, and it's like, what does that even mean?
Well, every time they come up with a new insult for people who aren't not my doctors, they all instantly adopt it. Like, I remember when the Rainbow Hate Mob was the newest thing, and then everybody put Rainbow Hate Mob in their banner. It's just like... oh, it's funny.
I think I remember, like, Twitterati being another one that they like to use.
Yeah, although I will say one thing. I'm really sick of these accounts that are basically dedicated to dragging up Not My Doctor stuff.
Okay.
It's like... Because, like, basically, there was a time, I think it was like a couple of months ago, where my entire Twitter feed was just dedicated to people shitting on Not My Doctor. It's just like, I want to talk about something else, man. It's like, I have my group chat where we go to kind of rant about shit opinions. Can you not have that with Not My Doctor? So we can actually, like, talk about regular things in public rather than this inane bullshit.
Yeah, I completely get that. Like, don't get me wrong, I kind of like some of the accounts, but at the same time, I remember one of them, probably the most prolific one of what you're talking about, Not My Doctor. They did a tweet calling out JXE, who just said the word shit on a Doctor Who Series 12. He quote tweeted it and said that, and they said, "I like you, Jay, but welcome to Not My Doctor." and I retweeted that saying there's a big difference between not liking the current
Well,
era.
that sounds like a joke to me.
I mean, it might well have been, but like, I just wanted to make a point that there's a big difference between not liking the current era and being a not my doctor, and I do think sometimes those things are conflated by certain people. Where it's like,
Yeah.
you can't not like it without being a not my doctor, and that's just simply not the case. Because
That is definitely a fringe view that people hold, but it definitely does exist.
I'm not saying it's
But I
everyone.
would,
Most people don't, but there are a select few
yeah,
who think that anyone who doesn't like it is a sexist, and should
yeah.
be treated as such, and it's just not. It's just not the case. It's just not. But I think that about wraps it up. I think, unless there's anything else you wanted to add.
That's went by super fast. I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have as well. We'll have to get you on for another one. Obviously, today's one's been a little bit of a rush, just because of timing and things. But I definitely would like to get you on for something else, or I'll go on to one of your streams or something, or whatever. We'll sort
Oh,
something
no,
out.
absolutely, mate. You're on the list of Lord Slarr approved panelists now.
I feel so important. A Lord Slarr panelist. I can put that next to enemy of not my doctor on my CV. Enemy of not my doctor.
Hashtag Rainbow Hate Mob. Hashtag JodyBot. Hashtag Lord Slarr panelist.
Hashtag Jodie
No,
our
no, no, no,
doctor.
no, no, my doctor.
Hashtag out. Sasha our master. I do like Sasha Dewan though. That's one thing I will say. Is that even though I don't like a lot of the current era, I do like Sasha Dewan as the master. And that's the thing with me, like, that's how I describe my hatred for the current era. I like certain parts about it, but it just doesn't come together to form a cohesive whole. Like, that's my stance on it. And that's what makes it even more frustrating, because, like, I can see a good series in this, it's just not quite there. That's how I see it. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up. I went on a tangent again, but obviously your link will be in the description.
Oh, cheers.
Thank you all for
Cheers.
watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. I forgot how to be a YouTuber there for a second. Go follow me on Twitter as well. I'd really like some more Twitter followers, please. It helps inflate my ego, so go do that. Obviously, Lord Slarr's channel will be in the description. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later.
Invest in Lord Slarr coin.
And I'm going to cut the recording.